If you ever felt like you keep ending up in the same unhealthy relationships, or like you can't relax even when nothing is wrong, there's a reason.
I wish I had known 30 years ago.
It's not just in your head.
It is all research-backed with neuroscience and psychology.
It's in your nervous system.
It needs to be out there.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to StreetSmarts MBA, the podcast for adults who are still trying to figure it all out. We talk about the things nobody teaches you in school, how to manage money, navigate relationships, and everything in between. I'm your host, Yafa, and today we're diving into something most of us have either experienced firsthand or watched someone we love go through: unhealthy relationships. Why we fall into them, why we stay in them, and why even the smartest people get stuck. My guest today is Tiss Zaitz, a relationship psychology expert who has spent nearly a decade studying the patterns behind unhealthy dynamics and emotional manipulation. She holds a master's in psychology, has done extensive independent research, and is about to present her findings at this year's APA conference, the largest psychological conference in the world. She was most recently a mental health educator at Hunter College, where she designed and led student workshops. She's also the creator of Unravel, an upcoming platform built to help people understand the psychology and neuroscience behind relationships. Tiss, welcome to StreetSmarts MBA.
Thank you.
I am so glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So I guess the first question is, how did you even get into this field and why?
Well, I've always wondered what makes people do the things they do, especially in relationships, and specifically, how does the things that we've experienced in our life affect the way that we relate to others? And so that's what I've focused most of my research on.
Incredible. So what defines an unhealthy relationship?
So an unhealthy relationship is any relationship where things are not open and honest and clear. So there are actually three types of unhealthy relationships. The first one is the one that we all think of, the toxic relationship. It's what I call the dominant. It's a control-based relationship where you have a clear manipulator, a clear abuser, and a clear victim. It tends to be one-sided, and it's the things that we think about. It's the gaslighting and the wearing them down and breaking them down so that you can control them type of manipulation. The other two types are very different. One is self-protective, which is a fear-based, and the other is performative, which is identity-based. And these tend to be relationships that look good on the outside, but it's usually based in some level of denial. So you've got maybe someone who is afraid of being alone, or they don't want to go through a breakup because they don't want to hurt the other person, they feel guilty, or they don't want to start over at 40. So they then go into denial that they can stay in the relationship when they know they shouldn't. They might care very much for them, and they might have very good intentions, but if they're not there for the sake of being in love with that person for who they are, then unhealthy dynamics start to show up. And the identity-based one is very similar, but instead of fear, it tends to be things like, I know I'm a good person, and if I leave, I'll be a failure. If I leave, then I will be a bad person. It's selfish. They haven't done anything wrong. So it's more about the identity.
So would you say that since relationships are complex and dynamics are complex, that we're all manipulating each other? Would you say that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You see this
Yep.
everywhere. Any interaction could be a form of manipulation, any friendship.
Sure.
There's that. So what are some of the most common manipulation tactics that people miss and should steer clear from?
There are so many different strategies and tactics of manipulation, and the most commonly used of almost all other manipulative tactics is the gaslighting that's kind of involved in everything. So gaslighting is when someone is manipulating and they're trying to influence your reality. They're trying to make you remember something differently. They're making you question yourself, doubt your own intuition, your own thoughts, feelings, beliefs. The trouble with gaslighting is that it makes us complicit in our own abuse. The way that works is, let's say Bob makes a insulting joke about Sally in front of friends. Sally doesn't like it. And Bob says, oh my gosh, you're being too sensitive. It was just a joke. Calm down. Well, Sally has two options. And these are not conscious thoughts and choices that we make. These are very quick, automatic choices. But you can either accept Bob's reality, or Sally can not accept Bob's reality. So she can decide, I am overreacting, which is Bob's reality, or I'm not, and he's being a jerk. Well, we tend to not want to call people jerks in our minds, especially if it's a partner that you love. So we take on their reality. And then we're telling ourselves, oh, yeah, I did overreact. I probably am just too sensitive. And now we are gaslighting ourselves so that we know for next time, maybe don't be so sensitive next time. And then that's how abusive manipulators get you to stop bringing up issues and tolerate their bad behavior, because then they can get away with things.
So basically, you let them train you, and you are agreeing to the training. And what is the word?
It is abuse. What makes it tricky is when you think about an abusive relationship, you think about physical abuse, typically. That's what comes to mind. And you can see the results of physical abuse. You can see the bruises and the broken bones. With emotional manipulation, you can't. It's not something you can observe. It's not something you can see the damage. It's something that you feel. So that's actually what makes it so difficult to recognize, because we teach red flags, we teach what it looks like, and it doesn't look like anything. What you need to learn is how it feels, which means you have to understand your nervous system. And that's one thing that very few talk about. And actually, studies have shown that the damage that can be done from emotional abuse is worse. People that have been through physical abuse, your broken arm heals, bruises heal. And there's other damage that goes along with it. But with the abusive, dominant type of emotional manipulation, it wears down your sense of self. It makes you question your own reality. It makes you dependent on them for what's real. And it just breaks you down completely into a shell of your former self. And that doesn't heal as quickly as a broken bone. That can take years, but physical abuse would not work without emotional abuse.
And that's why you stay.
The emotional abuse is what keeps you there. Guilt is a very common tactic to use in an abusive relationship, and you end up feeling guilty for their behavior over time. And so even when you get out of a relationship and you've recognized it, you're leaving, you're out, and you're trying to untangle yourself from the situation, but you still feel guilty for their abuse, for their behavior, because they've conditioned you. And it can take years to undo that. And what's really awful too is the impact of the abuse that you take is not going to exist within that relationship only. If I am starting to doubt myself, I'm not going to only doubt myself in that relationship. I'm going to doubt myself at work. I'm going to doubt myself when I'm in a conflict with a friend. It impacts how you see yourself. It impacts what you think you deserve. And then you carry that into your next relationship, which is why you see common patterns of people going through the same things over and over again. They get out of a really toxic relationship only to go into another toxic relationship, because your nervous system is what's running the show in relationships. The sympathetic nervous system, that's your fight or flight, that's your threat detector. And it's dictating most of our behavior in our life. And so when you're born, it's a blank slate. It doesn't know what love is. It doesn't know what relationships look like. So your early experiences of love and relationships from your caregivers, from your family, your nervous system is going, oh, okay, this is what, okay. And it's making a blueprint. And it's creating a model built after whatever you're experiencing. So if you grew up with neglect, if you experienced trauma, if you had chronic instability, and this doesn't always mean that you came from a bad home. It could be mom's working 3 jobs to put food on the table, or we move all the time because we are struggling to make ends meet. We keep having to move, and that creates instability. So it's not always necessarily that there was an abusive parent or something. But if you experience those, your nervous system says, okay, this is what relationships should look like, should feel like. And then
Should feel like.
Exactly, feel like. That's the kicker. And as you get into adult relationships, everything that you experience, your nervous system is comparing it to the blueprint that it's made. And our brains, they don't care about happiness. They don't care if you're fulfilled. All it cares about is safety. Your nervous system is designed for survival, and that is it. And it equates familiarity as safety. But because we carry those same issues, now that we've been worn down, it's much easier for the next person.
So I would say when a person is going from one toxic relationship to the other, the common denominator in their head would be that I'm the problem. I'm creating those toxic things. It's not the other person's fault. So there's another level of guilt there.
It's funny that you say it that way, because when I started therapy, I literally said exactly that. I said, well, I've had a lot of difficult relationships, and I'm the common denominator. And I didn't think that meant something was wrong with me, but it meant I was doing something that wasn't working. So it is true. The person who is the victim of repeated toxic relationships and repeated cycles of abuse, they are the common denominator. But again, it's the nervous system. It's your predictive processing. You're handling things in a way that are allowing behavior, but you don't necessarily realize it.
So it's a combination of allowing it and also seeking out those kind of people that you're familiar with.
What it is when we're talking about the dominant, toxic, abusive types of unhealthy relationships, they don't start that way. A lot of manipulation feels good. It looks good. And one thing to note, there are a lot of behaviors that are identical in a healthy relationship than in a toxic relationship.
So that brings me to the next question. What makes someone more vulnerable to manipulation? Is it someone with past trauma? The Cinderella that's been mistreated by her evil stepmother?
Partly because it matches the model that this is what love is. If you had an incredibly difficult, painful, traumatic childhood, and you're still alive and kicking, your nervous system's going, I've survived this. I know how to survive it. I know how to navigate that. This is where I feel safe. And obviously you're not going to necessarily find identical relationships. You're not going to go somebody who's abusive or neglectful. But if you've experienced neglect, you're probably going to feel safer in a relationship that has emotional unavailability. If love was never freely given, and sometimes it feels and looks like it might be, but there's rewards and punishment, and it's withheld, or if you're born to a very young mother, a lot of times you end up feeling responsible for their feelings. You take on that responsibility. So you then grow up to get into relationships where you don't choose yourself, where you prioritize other people's feelings. And then you're in a relationship where maybe it's not what I want, but if I choose myself, I'm being selfish, because that's what they learned growing up. So your nervous system is constantly comparing everything. And our brains are wired for prediction, and they're wired to maintain the existing model rather than update the model. So that's where, kind of jumping around here, but if you've heard of love bombing, which is very common in the toxic manipulation, what that does is, with love bombing, they come on very strong. They show a lot of affection, over-the-top displays of affection, charming, their gifts, and it creates a very, very strong image in your mind of this person. They're amazing. So when you have this very strong, positive image of your partner, and then they do something not so great, you're going to change your reality before you change your belief. You can't possibly imagine this person's maybe not so nice after all. So you start to justify and rationalize the behavior because that's easier. It's hard to see them as something different. So we change our reality more than our belief. And in hindsight, you always see all the warning signs, but nobody saw it at the time because everybody excused it away. It's out of characteristic for them. No, it's really not.
So there are warning signs. It's not like one day they change completely.
Right.
So do they know they're doing it? Are they doing this on purpose? When they're love bombing, for example, I know they're trying to be liked. They want to see, it's all part of the control thing. But are they doing this intentionally? At what point do they decide, okay, now I could relax, or now I don't have to try so hard anymore?
So the question of intentionality is an interesting one, because most of the time, even in the most abusive situations, it's not intentional.
Oh.
That doesn't excuse it. It doesn't mean it's not harmful. So intention does not negate impact, and impact is what is most important. And so what they end up doing is very toxic things in order to accomplish their need, and it happens to be really hurtful. They're not doing it to hurt you. They just don't care that it does because their needs are more important.
This is a more compassionate way of looking at it.
I told you I'm a bleeding heart for bad people everywhere. With people that are the dominant type, people think of it as like this arrogant, grandiose version of themselves. It's actually an extreme insecurity, and these are all defense mechanisms on some level. They have such a big need to be seen as such a good person, or whatever self-worth they can't find in themselves, they need to get it validated externally. This is why when you're being abused and you try and talk to a friend, they're like, oh, but he's so great. But they have an image to maintain, And so they can respect boundaries. They can do all those things because they're getting their needs met behind closed doors with the one person that they're abusing. And there's a lot of things at play, but they maintain that image publicly, and they have one person that they wear down and get their needs met.
Oh, goodness. How can we make sure that we're not that one person?
Well,
Because there's certain people, unfortunately, that end up being a lot of people's punching bags.
Boundaries. Have boundaries. Most people that become emotional punching bags don't have good boundaries. They don't have good armor. And I'm someone who has been and still sometimes is an emotional punching bag because I'm empath to the umpteenth power. But in the past, I've had a lot of damage because of it, because I didn't have good boundaries. I have much better boundaries now, so it doesn't damage me the way that it has in the past.
What's the difference between ultimatum and boundary?
The difference is a boundary states what I will do. A rule states what I'm expecting you to do, what I'm demanding you do. You cannot control somebody else. So if I say, you can't yell at me that way and blah, blah, blah and everything, and I'm saying I'm setting a boundary. No, I'm not. The boundary would be, if you choose to yell at me, I'm leaving. And then you leave. That's setting a boundary. You're saying, you do what you want, but here's the consequence. A rule is, you need to do what I tell you. And an ultimatum is, do what I tell you or else. So an ultimatum is a threat, and there's punishment if you don't do what I say. Boundaries are a way to keep people in your life. People think it's a way to push people out, but I'm setting a boundary because I want you in my life. Therefore, I'm telling you how I need this to work. Because if I let you mistreat me or disrespect me, eventually this is going to turn toxic. To stay in my life, this is what I need. And I would like to know what you need. There are unhealthy relationships everywhere. But of the unhealthy relationships that exist, the vast majority are the unintentional ones with two people that care about each other, that are well-intentioned, that don't want to harm. And those are the self-protective and the performative types of relationships. A lot of times it's well-intentioned. I don't want to hurt the other person. That's them trying to be caring. But here's the thing. If you're in a relationship with someone for any reason other than loving that person for who they are, then you're lying to them, essentially. If you're telling yourself, I want to be in love with this person, I want this to work, that's not the same as it is working. And it's okay to do that for a little while, but at some point you've got to recognize it's not working and call it. Because in a way you're removing their consent, because they are choosing a relationship that is not what they think it is. There's data. Who the Gottmans are, the Gottman Institute. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've heard of them. Mm-hmm. So for those of you who don't, the John and Julie Gottman are this adorable old couple. I think they're 70s, 80s. They've been doing research on relationships and marriages for like 50 years. And they have interviewed tens of thousands of couples. And some of these are longitudinal studies, meaning they've followed the same couple for sometimes decades. And they can predict divorce with a greater than 90% accuracy rate. And their number one predictor of divorce is when people avoid emotional conflict. But it's more of the type of conflict of like, I'm not comfortable with something, but I don't want to make a thing of it, so I just will pretend to be okay with something. That's emotional conflict. If you're hiding things from them, if you have doubts and you're not sharing that with your partner, that's avoiding emotional conflict. And if you're doing that, you are 90% or greater odds of getting divorced within 5 years. But on the flip side, when they look at studies of people who've been divorced, overwhelming majority of them say the reasons they ended up getting divorced were the things they were ignoring before they got married, the things they were hoping would get better when they got married. And the time frame, the window that they say that all this evidence supports from all these different studies is if you're in a relationship and if you're 6 months to a year in and it's not working, it's not what you want, odds are if you stay, you're going to end up divorced. 6 to 12 months is the window.
I guess my question is, a lot of people that find themselves in that kind of a situation, they think that this is just who I am. I will not find anything better because I'm not capable of expressing, voicing what I need to say. I just don't have that vocabulary. So I'll just stick with the persons that I already have with me rather than repeating the same pattern later. There comes a point where you're like, okay, so this is just who I am.
So for someone who is not speaking up, pretending to go along with things, that is insecurity, that is a self-worth issue or a confidence issue. Again, that goes back to your nervous system. And basically your nervous system is deciding everything for you. And that's why when, like you just said, I think I wouldn't do this, I wouldn't do that. But when you're in it, because you're not thinking, your nervous system is in charge. When you are in a situation that activates your nervous system, something makes you uncomfortable, you're pretending to go along with a situation and you get triggered about it, and you pretend to be okay with it even though you're not, that nervous system activation shuts down your logic and reasoning. And so you're acting solely on your emotions, solely on what you feel. So when you meet somebody and it's a healthy relationship and you're not used to that, your nervous system doesn't say, this is unfamiliar. We should think about this and examine it and let's take a closer look. No, your nervous system goes, I've never seen this before. This is dangerous.
So how do you decipher? Because you see this happening all the time.
All the time.
But you also don't want to be the person where all you see is red flags. So how do you decide? Is there a formula? Is there a test
so
to give?
The easy answer is be honest with yourself. Take a real hard look and be honest with yourself. And figure out what you still need to heal in yourself. Because those are the things that are keeping you stuck.
Well, that's a lifelong journey.
But, exactly, that's why I said that's the easy answer. The hard answer is doing it. And a lot of times the reason that we don't want to be honest with ourselves is because the truth is something we don't want to deal with. That famous quote that you can avoid reality, but you cannot avoid the consequences of avoiding reality.
Here's the thing, though. A lot of people don't know what it feels like to be in love. They think we have common interests. Sure, our values line up. Okay, we have a mortgage together. All right, we'll start popping out kids together. What is love? What does love mean? How is that supposed to feel?
I would say you need to feel emotionally safe. You need to be safe to be and feel who you are. And are you excited about this person for who they are? And if nothing changes, if nothing about the person and nothing about your relationship changes, are you happy?
How do therapists unintentionally reinforce manipulation without realizing it? Because I know a lot of therapists up until recently were not trained in narcissism. So you go to a therapist and you voice something and then they just say something hokey pokey. You walk away thinking, and you just need to be stronger. Would you touch on that? It's such an uprising right now. This is like a new age of therapists who specialize in narcissism, and everyone is toxic, and you should cut off ties with everyone.
So a lot of therapists don't have that depth of knowledge to understand what's really, really happening. So that's one issue. The other end, when you get into pop psychology, and if you follow social media, there's just so much misinformation out there that people are learning incorrectly. They think they know what they're talking about, and they start diagnosing everybody. And that's a big problem with therapists and with people is not everyone who's selfish is a narcissist. Not everyone who disagrees with you is gaslighting you. And we have a tendency to be real quick to throw those labels around. And I think therapists sometimes get caught in that too. A lot of them are not aware that they're doing harm. They might be steering a little bit in the wrong direction or missing something, but most of them are working with what they have. They're working with the training they have, the knowledge they have. That's why I chose this topic for my thesis, and that's why I've created Unravel, which is my website that's basically this. It's all of this information in one place. I've done rigorous research into a number of areas and brought it all together into one place so that it's all there and it's in language that people can understand and relate to. And it's got a dictionary, it's got a model of emotional grammar. There's a toolbox with all kinds of tools, there's interactive things. But that's why I built it, because I want that out there. It's so important to me, and I feel like it's something that I wish I had known 30 years ago. I wish I had access to this knowledge 30 years ago. But I didn't, and I've been through a lot. And when you're in high school and you're going to funeral after funeral for young people, and it was leukemia, suicide, brain aneurysm, meningitis, drunk driving, murder, and I knew the murderer and the victim. It was like a Lifetime movie.
Wow.
And nowadays, this information is out there. It's everywhere, but it's all over the place. You don't know what you can trust. It's inconsistent. So that's why I wanted to build Unravel, to bring it all into one place. It is all research-backed with neuroscience and psychology.
Speaking of manipulation, what do you think about dating apps?
The problem with dating apps is you're just casting a wide net. It's just a numbers game. Because attraction has to do with so many things other than just seeing a picture. When you meet somebody organically, you're probably in a place you both enjoy. You can see their appearance. It's not about looks. It's are they clean or are they a hot mess? Who are they hanging out with? You can't get any of that information from a dating app. You are literally just casting a wide net and then just seeing what sticks. And you lose all of that potential data. And so a lot of times we don't understand what's actually motivating our behavior. Us humans are kind of stupid. We get on dating apps. How many times, if you've ever been on a dating app, you see somebody and you're like, oh, he's cute. Oh, she's pretty. And you swipe to match. And then you get a message from them and you're like, oh, should I write back? And you look at their bio again and you're like, eh. Because you weren't actually interested in the person. You wanted validation. You needed to know that someone was interested in you. Once they wrote back, you got what you needed. That's just how our brains work. So what happens is this person maybe matched with you first and you send a message and you get nothing back. And you start to internalize these things. It's being ghosted, essentially. And being ghosted does have an impact. So it's messing with people because they think they're looking for love and they're really just looking for validation. And then people are being used for other people's validation and it's damaging their self-esteem, their confidence. And now that they've been around for a while, they're realizing it's bad for our mental health. And there's studies starting to come out that show that. But knowing your nervous system, knowing what's happening, you find ways to nurture yourself to survive. And those can be completely shutting down. That can be pushing people away. And those are excellent when you're a kid because you don't have control over too many things. Those become your defense mechanisms. But those things don't work in adulthood. As you get older, they become maladaptive. You can learn better coping skills. I like to ask people, what is a comfort zone? How would you define it? Your comfort zone is basically whatever your nervous system will tolerate. Because that's what's comfortable.
It doesn't tolerate a lot.
Right? But think about it. If you grew up with toxic stuff, if you've had toxic relationship after toxic relationship as an adult, your comfort zone is toxic.
Oh, interesting.
And healthy is uncomfortable. I had toxic relationship after toxic relationship. I had the stuff with my parents. God bless them. They did the best they could when I was going through everybody dying. Those things had an impact on me. And my comfort zone became toxic and unhealthy. And I went through therapy, I read all the books, I got a master's in this stuff, and I started dating someone who, it was very healthy. I felt safe, and it scared the bejesus out of me. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what was expected of me. If I call, am I calling too much? If I don't call, am I not showing enough interest? Like, listen, in a toxic relationship, I know I can call, and if they get mad, like, whatever. It's going to be a blow up. They're being crazy. I'm being crazy. I know how to navigate that. I know what to expect from a toxic relationship. I'm comfortable there. My comfort zone is toxic because your comfort zone is your nervous system's what it knows. We don't heal so that we can manage and handle trauma. We know how to do those. We heal so we can manage healthy relationships and healthy behaviors.
Okay.
Right?
So how do you actually retrain your nervous system if you can't relax, even when nothing is wrong? If you've gone through stress, trauma, your body may still be stuck in a survival mode, even if your life is fine now. So how do you fix it? How do you teach your body that it doesn't need to be on high alert all the time? You start small with things that help your body feel safe, like listening to calm music, taking a warm or hot bath, journaling, writing down your thoughts, even if those thoughts are messy. Singing or just humming does wonders for your nervous system. Stepping outside, walking in nature, hugging a tree, breathing fresh air, breathing slowly, especially the longer exhales. These things may seem small, but they're quite powerful. They tell your body that you're okay now, you're safe. And doing them regularly helps shift you out of survival mode into calm. And if you want more support, there are therapies that help, not just by talking, but by helping your body feel better too. One is called somatic therapy. It helps with how stress shows up in your body. The other one that I highly recommend and urge anyone who's ever had a traumatic experience, either short-term or even long-term, it works wonders, is the EMDR therapy. It helps your brain reprocess painful memories so they don't keep affecting you. There's also polyvagal therapy, which helps your body move out of a panic state into calm. There is help out there if you feel stuck If you don't know where to turn, give therapy a try. How do you know if it's the right therapist for you? Of course, make sure you click. Make sure whatever the therapist is saying resonates with what you're saying. There are plenty of awful therapists out there, but there are also some really wonderful ones. And a lot of therapy, yes, is talk therapy. You're rehashing your childhood, you're rehashing your past traumas, but try the trauma-informed therapy. It helps you move out of the trauma that you store in your body when your body is stuck in a survival mode. And of course, if you have kids, here's something else to know. Your nervous system teaches theirs. Kids don't calm themselves down on their own. You are the one that helps them regulate. They learn calm by watching and feeling it from you. How can you help them? Keep a routine. Consistency helps them feel safe. Let them move their bodies. It helps to let the stress out. Let them cry and comfort them. It's okay to cry. It's okay. Give them hugs. Sing to them, laugh with them, play with them. Most importantly, work on your own calm. Because if you feel safe and calm in your body, your kids will feel it too. And one last thing, know that you're not broken. Your body just got used to stress. The good news is you can learn a new way. Start small, start now, and start with a simple breath. I did not expect all this insight into my life.
Right?
Really connected with a lot of things that you said. Tiss's upcoming platform Unravel will be available at unravelrelationships.com. And you can also find her at tisszaitz.com. So if this episode resonated with you, or it didn't, but maybe someone you care about might benefit from it, please share it with them.
Please do.
Subscribe to StreetSmarts MBA. Leave a review if you found this helpful. Also, feel free to leave questions or comments or other topics you are interested in and would like us to cover. And I'll see you next time.
Thank you
so much. Thank you.